There's a comment on the screen, I think, that's interesting out of our guy Ferris. I don't know where Ferris came from, but he's been
Our last couple,
oh
he's been
man,
here and
he's
commenting a lot.
he's
Thank
been
you.
here.
Appreciate it.
He's been on pretty much every show I've done for the last few weeks. So Ferris, we appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. So Ferris is going to stick up for the Maize and Blue, and that's great. I appreciate that as a Michigan fan. So he's asking, does Ohio State have a winning record over Michigan? So I'm assuming he means all time. Oh, I'm looking at the record right now just to make sure I didn't miss by one
Oh,
game.
don't do that,
I knew I
Ferris.
would get it just about exact by myself, but I just want to make sure. 59-51 Michigan. Okay, that's the all-time series. And they must have a
You
winning
just do
record
the
against
last
Penn.
20 years, Mark. You don't have to do that. Look, I'm not trying to get mad at Ferris. I'm not. Just like I could care less. I mean, it's not
Well,
relevant.
that was going to be my point. Is that I don't have an issue with a Michigan fan or any fan. We can take this to all sorts of different rivalry arguments that say we got the all-time series right. I don't care if we've lost 12. I'm sure they care if they've lost 12 consecutive games, but they want to hold on to we got a 59-51 lead. And I don't have an issue with that. That's an argument point. Is that the end all be all in everything? I don't think so, but it's a strong argument point. But we're talking about games that were played in before 1900.
Right.
So, I was doing some quick math here since Woody Hayes, and it's pretty decided in Ohio State's favor. And we're going back 70 years. So we're not talking like the last 10 years. We're talking 70 years in Ohio State's favor. So do you care more about that? Do you care about 59-51?
Look, when you if the bulk of your success against a program is before there were face masks on the helmets and guys that wear like leather, like whatever there were on their heads, and
you taught those teams how to play football before you played them. Like,
I don't. I just and Ferris, once again, I really do appreciate you being here, and by all means, keep commenting. It's not you. You just kind of you triggered something that I tend to just get very annoyed with, which is especially before this year, Michigan fans tend to lean more on history as opposed to what's going on currently, right? Because it's easier. Look, factually speaking, Michigan is the
winningest program
ever, right? So you can lean on that and lean on that and lean on that. And most likely, unless they completely fall off a cliff and start averaging three wins a year, they're probably going to keep that for a very, very long time because they're going to continue to just slightly outpace even the best teams, right? So you're gonna always be able to lean on that. But it's just,
I guess I'm just not sure that's the mic drop that Ferris intended it to be.
No, you know what a mic drop is? Hey, what's the Ohio State Michigan record out of the last 20 years? What is it? Probably 17-3. That's a real mic drop. So it's like, because if I tried to do that as a Michigan fan and an Ohio State fan did that to me, I would be speechless. Like, what can I say?
Right. Yeah, but it's been 1,000 days or whatever it was since Ohio State's beat Michigan, and you could go with that. I see that on Twitter a lot, so you could go to that,
and that's all fun. And that's all fun. I'm good with that. Look, when you win, and I'm all for it. Look, I trash talk Ohio State fans too, but I know where to stay in my lane, right? Before I start to bridge the gap between poking fun at you because we beat you, compared to like trying to make to seem like we're dominating this series, because the facts of the matter is it's just we're not, and we have to continue to prove ourselves. I think Michigan has to prove themselves again in this rivalry and really establish themselves as a credible threat. Look, I don't care what Ohio State says. They can put Michigan on that clock in the weight room and wait for the game every year. But the truth is, we have not been on their level when you look at the last 20 years. They have dominated us. We are the program that's trying to reestablish our brand in this rivalry, right? We are the ones that should always have a chip on our shoulder, right? So I just think that needs to be embraced not only by the fans, but by the players, by the coaching staff. There's no entitlement. We are trying to get to that level. It's just it's what it is. You know.
For the record, Michigan's 34 ahead of Ohio State and 35 Alabama. And so, man, Alabama's on that pace of what, 13 a year, 14 a year,
Yeah.
versus 9, man. It may not last too incredibly long if this keeps up. And Ohio State's on a pretty good pace themselves. Plus, I don't know if you guys heard, you guys will, Dre, probably roll your eyes at this. The Ohio legislature is after the NCAA. They are like pushing hard to get the 12 wins back from the 2010 team that went 12-1 and had those vacated by the NCAA because of the tattoo scandal.
Oh, prior. Oh,
yes,
okay.
those
Look,
guys. So the Ohio,
see,
so Ohio State may get 12 back real quick, and that'll cut it down to like 22 or so.
Well, look, that's great. And Ferris, he said he followed up and said, "Does historical data mean anything?" Of course it does. But if you're talking about, if you're going to use historical data as some, you have to put context to that data. I think that's the most important thing,
Sure.
right? You know, Ferris, I'll be a lot more on board with your point if, let's say, Michigan had the same record versus Ohio State, but Michigan has had the recent dominance that Ohio State has had. Then you're like, okay, wow, not only are they winning this rivalry, they've won it more consistently over the last 20 years. So they actually own it, right?
Dre, do you know any crazy Michigan fans, like unreasonable? We need to bring them on. I want to hear from them.
Oh, I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to. I'm joking.
We know of one, Dre. We know of one. We gotta. We probably should reach out and see if we can get a couple on.
I mean, here's the thing. You know, I always say this, right? You can love your school, and by all means, I love the University of Michigan, but it doesn't mean that you turn a blind eye to reality, right? And I just think that's just how I roll with it. You know, like I hate Ohio State. Like I despise them. Why? I don't know. I'm a Michigan fan, and I grew up. That's our enemy, right? But I respect them. How can I not?
Right.
As a sports fan, how can I not?